Hi again then guys, and welcome to another special Projects Replica build, and this is one of the most highly requested replica builds that I've had for this series, a replica of the second generation Focus RS. This is still my favourite version of the Focus RS. I definitely like it more than the newer one by far, and I do still like it more than the WRC inspired first generation version. I just love the look of this car, I love the sound, I love the fact that it came in lime green straight from the factory. It denotes just how crazy the car is. Plus, it's seriously quick. Now, as far as the visuals, as you can see, it doesn't really look exactly like the Focus. Of course not. That car has a beefier body kit, a bigger wing, but the body kit in particular does make it look radically different to the ST. But we do what we can. I would recommend fitting the optional body kit and also the special wing on the back, as you can see. As far as the rims, I would recommend Ray's 57XVs in the inch up one size. As you can see, I've painted those black. I've gone for ebony, which comes from Jaguar, specifically the S-Type. But you don't have to do that. Of course, from the factory, they're grey or kind of greyish silver. I've done that as kind of an aftermarket mod. And as far as the colour itself, which of course for an RS build is very important, maybe even the most important thing, I've gone for lime green, pretty obviously, but that's also what the colour's called, from the Lexus LFA. So it's a pretty expensive colour to get. If you don't want to fork out that much cash, you can get similar lime greens from the Lotus Evora, and also from some of the American muscle cars from Plymouth, among others as well, but those are the easiest ways of getting it. So that's pretty much it as far as the visuals. Now, of course, we'll run through the mechanical side of things, and then, as we always do, take it out on a racetrack to see if it lives up to the RS. Now, this particular build, at least for me, was one of those that was more important to be as close to the real car as possible rather than PP relevant. 458 PP is kind of a weird number, but it's more important just to have the car to be fun and to be, as I said, accurate to the real RS. Now, I've gone for sports hard tyres, which you could say is kind of overkill, so it's down to personal preference what you want. As far as brakes, we've left those stock, because of course it's a production car, it's a road car, you want it to feel as such. As far as suspension, we've got the ride height on 110, front and rear. Springs we've slightly increased to 575 and 525. The dampers and anti-roll I've actually left on 3, because although that is standard when you fit the race suspension, that's still higher than stock. Camber and toe we've got neutral, so unless you want that, you don't really need it. Interestingly, for the gearbox, at least according to the specs that I could find, it seems to share the same gearbox as the ST of that generation. So you don't actually have to change that at all, even the final drive is the same. As far as the diff, I've got the lowest initial torque, as you can see, highest acceleration and lowest braking. I personally like those settings, other people may not, so feel free to mess around. If you already know one that works better for you, by all means go for that. As far as power, we do have an oil change, so of course you need to bear that in mind. Then, as far as upgrades, obviously the real car has 300 horsepower, so we've gone for a sports computer, sports cat, intake tuning, and the high RPM turbo. You've got to go for the turbo for an RS, and then we've reduced the power to 81.8%. You could get it to that in different ways, but that's just the way that I've opted for. And as far as the weight, I've given it window weight reduction, which you don't technically have to do, but I've opted to, and then I've given it a 48 kilo ballast, which I've put all the way to the back to both improve the weight ratio, front to rear, and also to bring us up to the actual weight of the real car, which is 1,468 kilos, which is pretty beefy, especially for a front-wheel drive hatch, but of course the Focus isn't a small car, it's a decent sized vehicle. And as far as downforce, as you can see, I've got the optional rear wing downforce as high as it'll go, but it's not that high anyway, so you don't really have to do that. So that's it for the build. What about how it performs? Overall then, as far as the build goes, I already mentioned the fact that it was more important to me to feel accurate to the car, and also of course to be fun, rather than to be useful for racing or to be rounded off to 450 or 460 pp. That's just not as important really with this build. If you want to do that kind of stuff, you can, but it just didn't feel like that kind of tune setup, to me at least. Overall, if you do decide to use this build, I hope, of course, that you find it fun first and foremost, and that you find it to be a good representation of the RS. But that's it for this build overall. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.